Hello YouTube. Today I wanted to just do a little video about a subject that I feel really passionate about, and it is the subject of 9/11, because I was listening to one of my favorite YouTubers yesterday, Michelle Platty, and she did a topic of conspiracy theories she's afraid to talk about. She likes talking about conspiracy theories, but apparently there are some that are so controversial that she knows that if she delves too deep in them, I guess she could, receive lots of flack, or even have, strikes put against her channel or whatever, as many of the, controversial YouTube channels do. Some of their videos, if they say certain stuff, which is very interesting. But anyway, she was just talking about how so many people feel so strongly about it, one way or the other, whether you believe, the official story of what was initially reported, or that it may have been an inside job. It's like you kind of have one or the other feelings. You're kind of not, in the middle. And she said she's in the middle. She honestly, understands both sides. And she also had a relative, her grandfather, I believe she said, helped build the Twin Towers. So she, knows firsthand how strong those buildings were built to be, and what they were built to be able to withstand. But I just wanted to talk about something that I was just kind of drawn to, or mesmerized by, a couple of years ago, maybe two and a half years ago. It was, one of the anniversaries of 9/11, and I don't know if I'm just a really hypersensitive person. I'm just more sensitive about things than most other people. But, I don't know if the way my mind works, I just kind of think about tragedies and things more often than people. But I really couldn't stop thinking about 9/11, what I was experiencing, thinking about, what everybody all over the world was experiencing, and especially the people who either suffered and were survivors, or God forbid, lost their lives. And, their friends and family, their relatives. I've seen so many documentaries about it. But this was before I really started seeing any. I mean, I've seen documentaries about people who are construction workers, engineers, their perspectives, their studies. I've seen documentaries about, finding remains, some of the remains of victims, even 10 years later, still weren't recovered. Some relatives and friends and stuff of people, still no closure, still very heartbroken. And then, the forensics and everything that goes into finding, their, I guess, their remains, their history, even if it's not, everything, and how important that is to people who have lost someone. It's kind of, thank God, something I've never had to personally experience like that. So it was kind of hard for me to understand, but apparently, when you do, I guess it's very important for closure and to help with closure purposes. So, there's so many. And I saw the documentary Loose Change, which is probably, in my opinion, the best out of all the 9/11 documentaries. I'm not going to go too much into it, because that could be a video in itself. I could literally talk about this topic forever. But it's Loose Change Final Edition, because there are a few editions. That was the last and final, the most up-to-date research information, gathered interviews and results of studies and all that stuff. And it's available on YouTube, I believe. But before I saw that, I was just, looking up information about it. Because on the one hand, you do just want to turn away. You do just want to turn a blind eye. Especially, if you didn't have friends or family members personally who suffered. It is very disturbing. It's like almost unfathomable. It's like the world at large suffered, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We, just for so long, I remember so many of us, like a loud sound was like, what was that? Or if a plane was flying a little too low in the sky, you felt it's just, maybe your palms got sweaty, your heart started to beat. Not everybody, but quite a few people I knew, I worked with, and my roommates and friends and things. And people deal with stuff differently. I understand there are a lot of people who this stuff just doesn't really bother them as much. It doesn't get to them, or maybe it bothers them so much that they just kind of choose to check out and not think about it, research it, anything at all. That I can understand. We're all different. Even though I personally feel like as a service to the people who died, were basically martyrs, lost their lives, and their friends and family members, I believe it's important to look into it and research about it. I do believe, in prayers and meditation, and just I prayed for the families of the survivors, sending them, positive vibes, uplifting energy, meditating, all that stuff. I do believe in that. Because it's like a train wreck. Like, you don't want to look, but it's something that affects everybody. And because it's something that affects everybody, there's a part of you that definitely wants to know more. I mean, our world has not been the same since that day. There have been a lot of terror attacks and, tragedies that have happened. But I think as far as America is concerned, that one was just, the first and the worst in a lot of ways. And so before I'd even seen Loose Change or anything, done much reading up on it, any of the other documentaries, I was just looking at photos, and then I saw a photo of, I believe it was from Time magazine, of a man jumping out of the window, like one of the World Trade Center buildings, like very high near the top. And at first you're like, I don't want to see this. Why am I doing this to myself? But then just watching it, it's like a whole nother level of the tragedy. And there are so many different theories about what actually really happened and why. But for me, I'm a very empathetic person. I'm an empath. I immediately put myself in that person's position. And I feel like if I was a family member or friend, I would want to know the truth. Like, I feel like everybody deserves to know the truth, no matter what it is. And it's a disservice and dishonor and blatant disrespect to the family members and loved ones and friends of the deceased, those who are basically martyrs who died that day, to tell them lies knowingly, or withhold information, or release false information intentionally. And you can go to YouTube, you can even see videos, and there are obviously pictures, and some channels, even when they show videos of some people who were jumping, they kind of don't commentate on it. Some of them are silent. Some of them play like sad music in the background. And like I said, I definitely consider myself an ultra sensitive, hypersensitive person. You know, I lived in Orlando when the Pulse nightclub shooting happened. I was like so torn, as many people were, especially affected the LGBT community. And I actually had one of my coworkers had a friend who was a survivor. So that just, hearing his story and everything took it to another level. That's a different video in itself as well. But just thinking about it, like, it's not even like when I go by near there or the vicinity, like, I'm constantly thinking about it. Like, things here or there, I think maybe at least a couple of times a week. I think about, the survivors, what it was like to be in there, how much information do we really have, what happened, what didn't happen, relatives of deceased loved ones, all that, like, just praying for them. And just, it has to be one of the scariest things imaginable. But at first, getting back to this pictures and videos of the jumpers, at first I was like, why would someone do this? Why would someone make videos showing these people basically committing suicide, like leaping to their death? Most of the videos I saw weren't as graphic. It is not as graphic as it sounds. They don't usually show the people who kind of made it to the bottom. Some of them do. Those are, different videos I choose not to watch. But if you, you look up, I think it's like 9/11 jumpers or, falling man. There was one man in particular, his image in video clip, he was wearing, like a business suit and his tie. And his tie was kind of like flailing in that image. I don't know if it's because it was caught. It was a photograph that was like used in like the media, like Time magazine or something. But for whatever reason, he's the most notorious one. They nicknamed him, they dubbed him the Falling Man. And there is a documentary about him where they talk about, they speak to his friends and relatives and loved ones and stuff about their opinions on that image, what they feel when they see it, the, video of it. And it's very interesting. Like I said, it's just 9/11 just gives me so many different emotions. You're angered, you're confused, you're devastated, you're sad, you're somber. You feel like empathy towards these people, but it just makes you wonder, like, what on earth could have been going on in that building? What were they experiencing that was so horrific that they rather leap to certain sudden death than deal with whatever it was they were encountering any further? It's just unfathomable. Again, no one ever wants to imagine being in a situation like that. But once you see and realize that people were, it's been documented, it really just makes it that much more, I guess, human, relatable. And for me personally, I can't speak for others, but I would assume, people who've written books and articles and made documentaries and films about it, it makes you want to delve further and deeper for the truth. And it's one of those subjects. I get it. Some people, they're like out of sight, out of mind. I can't go there. And again, I'm not judging anybody. No one has the right to say what someone else should do or shouldn't do or feel or shouldn't feel. If you feel like you can't handle it or you just don't want to, that's fine. I mean, even if you're a person, maybe a younger person or whatever, it didn't really affect you as much. Maybe it happened before you were born, but there are many, many people who it has affected deeply. Even ones, like I said before, who didn't lose anybody, who didn't survive it themselves, have no, connections to New York whatsoever. And I think that, the same pain and frustration and confusion and unanswered questions that we have, that people who have made movies and written books and done studies and all that, definitely we should use that to fuel our desire to find the truth. Because, I'm not going to say, oh, you need to believe this or you need to believe that. I will say, from watching Fahrenheit 9/11 and Loose Change, I am very strong on my opinion, how I feel what happened. But regardless, I feel like no matter what you believe, no matter what you want to believe, no matter what you don't want to believe, as a service to those who died, lost their lives that day, I believe everybody deserves to know the truth, especially friends, family members of victims that died that day. Lying and presenting like a false narrative to deceive those people and deceive everybody else. It's like you don't really want to go there, but if that is what happened, what's been happening, then it's infuriating, it's maddening, and you want to know why. And, you definitely want to get to the bottom of it. So, yeah, it's definitely something that no one really likes to talk about, but I believe it's one of those things that we should talk about. There are a lot of subjects and topics people don't want to talk about, but you should. I'm not saying everybody should think about it all the time, be sad all the time. It's not where I'm trying to go. But I do believe that because so much has happened as far as trauma and everything lately, people have become more desensitized. When a mass shooting happens now, unfortunately, there as a reaction, but it's kind of like short-lived. Sometimes when the media covers something, they'll cover it like while the story's hot for a few days, and then they'll just go on to the next. It's like some of us, though, meanwhile, we're like, well, what's going on with those people's family members and what's going on in that community? Kind of like the Las Vegas shooting at the Mandalay Bay. There is so much more to what happened there in that story than just what was reported. And again, that can be its own video. For people like myself who just want to know more than what, say, like the news shows on, mass media like CNN or HLN or whatever, MSNBC, you go online and you read articles and you come across, things that are written by survivors or relatives of victims. And, again, it's like, well, how far do you want to go? How deep do you want to dig? How far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Because, it could either give you more peace of mind, more closure, or make you even more upset, more frustrated, more angry, more disturbed, lose more sleep at night. But there is, for example, a group of survivors, a few of them who had unanswered questions. They wanted to come together and do, just a project or begin speaking to the media about their unanswered questions and discrepancies of official reports versus what they experienced. And you can actually research this for yourself. All of them mysteriously died, which to me is just crazy. And there are instances and cases like that about quite a few things. So anyway, getting back to 9/11 and the 9/11 jumpers, I'm not the type of person that likes to watch like horror movies or whatever, bloody, gory stuff. Or sometimes, when those beheadings first came online on YouTube a couple of years ago, like right after the war started, I'm like, how can you watch that? Like, I don't care if it's real, if it isn't real. I don't care if there's blood or if there isn't blood, but me personally, I can't even watch stuff like that when it's fake. So when it's real, is it like a voyeurism thing? Like, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't like it. But there are people in some of, the classes, like courses I was taking at school who they're like, we watch it. We've had discussions and debates about it. But I can watch this as much as it makes my eyes water. So I guess I understand where they're coming from. I don't know what their reasoning is, but they can handle it. And it's not that I just like watching these, but again, I think, after they printed that one image, and I believe it was Time magazine, of the man jumping, and then that's the video footage they showed most, in the media, on the news and stuff, and in documentaries. You can't help but just, your heart just aches. And you're like, my goodness, what were you experiencing that you were like, no, I have to, death was the only escape. You were certain that you wouldn't be saved. Whatever it was you were going through, you couldn't stand it another minute. You couldn't take it. You just had to, leave. You had to go. You had to escape. You had to, not fly away, but it's kind of weird because some of these videos that show people falling, some of them are like in slow motion. It's very interesting. Like, I'm even on the fence about that. I'm not completely certain how I feel, but I believe it, intention has a lot to do with it. And if your heart is in the right place, you're trying to remember these people, then that's one thing. But kind of just gawking at it is another thing. But again, it's the internet, all different types of people watch all different types of things for all different types of reasons. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I just feel like, as a whole, our society, I feel like hopefully we stop getting desensitized. I know it's a coping mechanism. It's a coping strategy. That's, one of the things that happens when people experience a trauma. It's you kind of have to shut your brain down a little bit just to protect yourself. You were thinking about this stuff all day, and if you were as scared as you were every day, all day, as you were the day after it happened, when you pretty much were afraid to do anything, wondering what's going to happen next, is it going to happen to me? Then you just pretty much won't be living. You'll be a hermit, stuck in your house all day, afraid to do anything, go anywhere. And you don't want that to happen, because then the terrorists win. You're in fear, you're afraid, Conquering that is a way, I guess, of kind of defeating them, as well as learning the truth about what happened, to expose them. And I believe the final story has not been, released to the mass public. I believe people have to, if they care enough, delve deeper and further and research for themselves on their own. I feel like those of us who haven't lost loved ones, who are just too devastated to do it, we should do it for them, because the more truth that is found out, shared, and widely known, the more likely the people who are truly responsible will be held accountable. It won't be a secret. People won't be wondering. We'll know what happened, and they'll get their day. Justice will be served. I think there should be more of a balance. We shouldn't be scared and afraid constantly, even though there's so much messed up stuff going on in our world nowadays, but we should still remember and reflect. Like, never forget. It shouldn't just be like a bumper sticker or a slogan or a meme. You know, I feel like the more we remember, the more likely we can prevent it from happening again. The more, passionate and caring we are, and the more we want to know the truth, the more we want everyone to know the truth. I believe that's how we can truly prevent this stuff from happening more. So that's it. If you haven't seen the documentary Loose Change, I highly recommend it. Final edition is the one that I saw, and you can, come to your own conclusions, form your own opinion. But yeah, God bless all the survivors and all the family members of victims of 9/11.